So hello again everyone, I am Mikaela Pilimangubat and I will be talking about Philippine-American War or insurrection. The fight for Filipino independence persisted, shifting from Spanish rule to resistance against a new foreign power, the United States. In April 1898, the US declared war on Spain, and by May 1, American forces had decisively defeated the Spanish fleet in Manila Bay. Filipino revolutionary leaders who had been exiled in Hong Kong returned in the Philippines. So dito sa slide nito, we are looking at the early stages of the Philippine-American War, or what some Americans even called the Philippine Insurrection. Basically, after natin lumaban sa Spain for independence, biglang nag-shift yung struggle natin to a new foreign power. This time, the United States. Noong April 1898, the US declared war on Spain, and by May 1, talagang ginulpi nila yung Spanish fleet sa Manila Bay. So because of that victory, nakauwi agad sa Pilipinas yung mga Filipino revolutionary leaders na na-exile sa Hong Kong. And from there, tuloy-tuloy na ulit yung laban, pero this time, hindi na Spain ang kalaban, kundi Amerika. Dito naman, we have actual historic photos from 1898. Makikita natin dito yung American troops arriving, ready to assert control over the Philippines. Parang reminder siya na kahit tapos na yung Spanish rule, hindi pa rin tapos yung struggle natin. Yung mga images na to capture the reality of the war. Soldiers on ships, troops in trenches, and official documents showing how serious the US was about taking over the island. In short, these photos give us a raw glimpse of what was happening on the ground habang lumalaban yung mga Filipino for freedom. During the Philippine-American War, which erupted after Spain transferred sovereignty of the Philippines to the United States in December 1898 through the Treaty of Paris, Filipino revolutionary forces led by Emilio Aguinaldo mounted a determined and vigorous resistance against American military efforts to establish control over the islands. This conflict arose as the U.S. government under President William McKinley sought to assert its authority and capitalize on the Philippines' strategic and economic potential, but faced strong opposition from Filipinos who were committed to securing their independence and rejecting foreign domination. So for this slide, dito na pumapasok yung Treaty of Paris signed December 1898. Under this treaty, Spain literally sold the Philippines to the US, as in binenta tayo for $20 million, parang wala man lang say sa atin bilang bansa. Because of that, Aguinaldo and the Filipino revolutionary forces launched a strong and determined resistance. Talagang ayaw natin magpakontrol ulit sa ibang bansa. So the conflict grew because President William McKinley and the US government wanted to assert authority and take advantage of the Philippines' strategic location and economic potential. Pero syempre, the Filipinos fought back kasi ang goal natin from the very start was true independence and freedom from foreign domination. So basically, this slide shows how the war intensified dahil sa clash between America's expansion and our fight for sovereignty. The conflict unfolded in two distinct stages. Initially, from February to November 1899, Aguinaldo led a conventional military campaign that ultimately faltered against the superior training and equipment of U.S. forces. Following this, the Filipinos transitioned to guerrilla tactics, sustaining their resistance from November 1899 until 1902, when President Theodore Roosevelt officially announced the war's end. Despite this declaration, Filipino fighters continued sporadic and intermittent combat operations until 1913. So, the conflict happened in two stages. Una, from February to November 1899, Aguinaldo tried irregular or conventional war, pero talo talaga dahil mas trained at mas equipped ang US forces. So after that, the Filipinos switched to guerrilla warfare, fighting from November 1899 to 1902, when Roosevelt said the war was officially over. Pero kahit ganun, may paunti-unting laban pa rin ng mga Filipino hanggang 1913. Historians have long debated the proper name for the conflict between the United States and the Philippines. Traditionally, the US government labeled it the Philippine Insurrection, a term that describes a violent revolt against an established authority. In contrast, Many scholars, particularly Filipino historians, prefer to call it the Philippine-American War, emphasizing that it was an armed struggle involving nations or distinct groups within a country. The Philippines had already become a U.S. territory following the 1899 Treaty of Paris. However, the United States refused to acknowledge Aguinaldo's government, labeling any Filipino resistance as mere insurgency and rebellion. So guys, here's the tea. Historians have been debating for ages about what to call the fight between the US and the Philippines. Like the US government back then was all like, it's just a Philippine insurrection, which basically means a violent revolt against the authority. Pero a lot of scholars, especially Filipino historians, are like, hold up, it's actually the Philippine-American War, kasi it was legit an armed struggle between nations or different groups in the country. Now check this. The Philippines was already a US territory kasi of the 1899 Treaty of Paris. Pero guess what? The US didn't even recognize Aguinaldo's government. And the Filipino resistance? They just brushed it off bilang insurgency or rebellion. So yeah, it wasn't just a small revolt. There was actually a big fight for recognition and independence going on. For our lesson summary, exploring history through the lens of multi-perspectivity means acknowledging that history is not a single definitive story. Instead, it embraces a variety of viewpoints, each offering a unique and sometimes incomplete understanding of past events. Under the conservative rule of Governor General Izquierdo, the Cavite Mutiny was blown out of proportion and used as a pretext to suppress Filipino reformists. A thorough review of original sources, however, indicates that the revolt was triggered by a new policy requiring certain soldiers to pay personal taxes, a burden they had not faced before. Exploring history using multi-perspectivity means realizing na hindi lang iisang kwentong history. Instead, it brings in different viewpoints, each giving its own take, minsan kulang, minsan bias, but all helping us see the bigger picture of what really happened. During the conservative rule of Governor General Izquierdo, the Cavite Mutiny was super blown out of proportion and ginamit niya as a pretext para i-crack down ang Filipino reformists. Pero when you go back to the actual sources, makikita mo na the revolt mainly started dahil sa new policy na pinagbabayad ng personal taxes ang ilang soldiers. Tax na hindi naman nila binabayaran before, kaya syempre nag-trigger ng tension. Various interpretations exist regarding the cry of rebellion that ignited the Philippine Revolution. While some scholars believe the exact date and place are less critical, many argue that further detailed investigation is essential to precisely commemorate this pivotal moment. The Philippine-American War, which extended the fight for sovereignty, should not be labeled an insurgency. Calling it the Philippine Insurrection diminishes the significance of the Philippine Revolution, the quest for independence, and the birth of the Filipino nation. So there are different interpretations about the cry of rebellion that sparked the Philippine Revolution. Some scholars say na hindi super crucial kung exact date or place, pero others argue na kailangan pa ng mas malalim na research para ma-commemorate talaga ang tama yung pivotal moment na yon. Meanwhile, the Philippine-American War, which continued the fight for our sovereignty, should not be called an insurgency. Using the term Philippine Insurrection, parang binababa niya the importance of the Philippine Revolution, the struggle for independence, and the birth of the Filipino nation. So once again, I am Micaela Pili-Mangubat, and with me are Julio Francisco Labao and Vincent Dicho. Thank you for listening.